What is the most OP build for Lysithea in Fire Emblem 3 Hopes? Sylvain was strong in his own way, but as far as damage per second, Lysithea has him beat. By a lot. I was honestly torn between making her a Mortal Savant or making her a Gremory. Mortal Savant seems more unique for sure, and as much as I would like to go with this build, she's too much stronger as a Gremory for me to consider the notion. I'm going to explain my reasoning as it comes up in the build, that way you can see why I made this choice. But with that being said, you will not be disappointed. Lysithea has a really strong kit, followed by the fastest spellcasting possible in the entire game. This gives her so much power that I decided to show off the hardest battle in the entire game while showing you her destructive power. The footage you see in the background is a mission that you can only unlock after unlocking Gatekeeper. The level of this mission is over 50 levels, higher than the highest story mission on Maddening. You could think of this as this game's challenge level. Although with Lysithea, it's barely a challenge at all. For our weapon, we're using a plus 100 hero relic called Satunger's Mystery. This weapon does a few very important things. The first of which is Relentless Magic. This ability reduces our cooldowns by a whopping 50%. But wait. There is more. This relic also gives us the ability Agnia's Arrow, which is one of, if not the strongest spell in the entire game. The biggest downside is the fact that it doesn't have a natural element, despite the description saying there is a flame. This means the elemental abilities I love to use so much will not buff this ability. Luckily for us though, this isn't a problem because Lysithea doesn't have any. Just like all our mage builds, you're going to want to use a mage staff or a Slepius. You could use Tharsis since you do have the crest for it, but it doesn't really apply to the spells we're going to be using, so I wouldn't bother. We're also opting for Tome Resist to give us an advantage against mages. Mages will have the highest resistance stat in our entire kit revolves around slinging spells. The other spell is going to be Bolting. It's hard to say if this or Ragnarok has the higher damage, it's very close, but the attack range on Bolting plays into Lysithea's unique ability better than Ragnarok does. Which brings us to Cursed Expulsion. Enemies sent flying explode and deal dark damage in a wide area. You could then use your unique action to draw those enemies back into you. The first part of this ability is actually quite good. The second part, not so much. There isn't much of a point in bringing an enemy closer if you've already defeated them. So since bolting hits all the way around Lysithea, this allows you to aim for the dead center of the pack of enemies. And when used, Cursed Expulsion will fly in all directions. Unsought Power is her second ability, which greatly restores both the Awakening and Warrior gauges when activating crests. This leads us to the first major reason Lysithea is more powerful as a Gremory. Lysithea has two crests. She has the major crest of Gloucester and the minor crest of Charon. This means that if you cast a spell, there's a 40% chance to proc the crest to slightly boost your damage. But since the Charon crest is a minor one, this only gives a boost of 25% for that exact same ability, but for combat arts instead. This doesn't mean you can't run Mortal Savant. In fact, Lysithea does have the ability to pull off that class quite well. It just means that statistically speaking, it's not going to be as strong as Gremory. Lysithea's final unique ability is Virtuoso, which increases your damage dealt by 50% when ordered to attack. As for the class abilities, Gremory reduces the spell cooldowns on black, dark, and white magic. Do you know the difference between black and dark magic? There isn't two types of dark-related magic in this game. Black magic refers to all of your normal elemental spells, like fire, thunder, ice, and wind. Dark magic refers to exactly that, the pure dark magic abilities. This means we are not locked into using dark spells on Lysithea for these bonuses to apply. Which brings us to the other reason Gremory is so much stronger. Combat arts have longer cooldowns overall, and although you can gain the cooldown on both magic and combat arts via the relic weapon, you will not get the added cooldown from the black magic cooldown bonus. Bowbuster gives us a 95% damage boost against bows, and now we talk abilities. As per usual, at the end of the video, I'll let you know where I gained all these wonderful abilities. Starting with the obvious, we have Reason level 3. This boosts our damage to enemies by 30% while wielding a tome. Wild Abandon is what makes us a glass cannon. This greatly increases our damage to enemies, but also increases the damage we receive from them. Honestly though, we're a powerful mage, I wouldn't have it any other way. Offensive Tactics increases our damage to enemies by another 20% as long as we still have our battalion active. Apex Tome increases our crit hit damage, which is a nice boost alongside some of our other crit chance increases coming right up. Burst of Resolve plays right into the crit by restoring our Awakening gauge with each critical hit we land. Proficient Wit Strike makes all of our damage calculated off of magic. For some reason without this ability, even when using magic and tomes, the damage is a little lower. This is going to need some more testing to say for sure, but if you don't really notice a big enough difference, swap it with Sneak Attack. Sneak Attack allows us to increase our damage by quite a bit when attacking from behind. This does scale off of Dex, but luckily Lysithea's Dex is her second best stat. Cyclical Specials temporarily increases the warrior gauge fill rate after using a warrior special. This allows us to spam our warrior special a little more frequently. Battle Instinct increases the fill rate of both the warrior and awakening gauges until one of them is completely full. Make sure you're always using one or the other once maxed to make sure that this ability is always in our favor. Boost Critical boosts our crit chance, and so does Specials Master. Specials Master is only a temporary boost activated after a warrior special that defeats 30 enemies or more, which means it activates pretty much every time. This cycle of crit allows us to be the ultimate slinger of spells. Lysithea's cooldown reduction on our spells bring the once 15-second cooldown all the way down to 4, and 5 seconds on Agnias's arrow. This means there is no time at all where you can't cast something. In fact, if you wanted to, you can ignore the warrior specials and awakening gauges completely. Much like the Sylvain build, this is the cause of having way too much power. The battle you're seeing in the background is full of some of the tankiest enemies in the entire game, yet they're being 1 and 2 shot with ease. Your warrior special gauge increases very fast. You can save it for the final boss, you can save it for enemy types you know you can't one-shot. That's up to you. Pretty much everything you press is gonna decimate literally anything you attack, so just have fun with it and go wild. Just like all my builds, besides the first one, I didn't put any stat items on Lysithea because she doesn't need it. Her magic maxed out all on its own, and if I boosted her defense and resistance, I wouldn't worry about being hit either. It's the last bit of challenge Lysithea has. Now let me quickly tell you where I got all the abilities as promised. Reason level 3 is gained through Mage, Warlock, and Grimoire. Warlock also unlocks Apex Tome and Boost Critical. Brigand gives us Wild Abandon. Offensive Tactics is gained through Wyvern Rider. Burst of Resolve from Trickster. Proficient Wit Strike from Mortal Savant. Keep in mind this is a unique ability to this character in Mortal Savant. You will unlock it, but you may not see any indication of unlocking it until you've already mastered the class. Cyclical Specials and Specials Master comes from Dark Knight, Battle Instinct from Bow Knight, and the optional ability Sneak Attack comes from Assassin. Agnia's Arrow comes from our weapon, and Bolting, well, that's a little bit more complicated. You have to teach Bolting to Lysithea by another character. I'll give you a quick rundown on how and let me know in the comments if you're still struggling with it. First, you need to add the character learning the ability as an adjunct to the teacher. The teacher must be in the active position. The teacher must have the Ardor spell maxed all the way to level 3. The adjutant has to have an A rank in this weapon type for the ability. In this case, an A rank in tomes. An Ardor spell can only be taught by someone's preferred class. You can see this indicator with the blue arrows on the class selection screen. If the ability is unique to only that one unit, it cannot be taught. Also, the Ardor spell being taught cannot be learned naturally through that character's normal mastery progression. If all these requirements are met, you need to continue using this ability as the teacher, over and over and over until you eventually teach the attack to the adjutant. Sometimes it takes 5 or 10 minutes, other times it takes hours. In this case though, I deem bolting strong enough for the build to make it more than worth it. Now with all of that being said, if you still want me to build Lysithea as a mortal savant, I can. But you're gonna have to show me there is a demand for it. I have a lot of other characters to create builds for, so once this video gets to 200 likes, I'll create Lysithea as a mortal savant. On that note, if you liked the video, don't forget to drop a like and subscribe. I release builds every single day, and they're just getting stronger and stronger. So if you want to see a specific character, let me know in the comments. I choose which character comes next based on the demand. So let me know what you want me to build next.